Welcome back to Dirty Pretty, the space where we own our feelings, honor our experience, share unfiltered truths, and talk shit, all through a lens of love. So it's been a hot minute since I have been in this space with you and had the opportunity to connect. And I just want to name that very clearly that I have been behind the scenes working on updating the graphics for Dirty Pretty. And I hired a designer and we went through our process of working together and we just couldn't connect. And what I mean by that is, I'm just going to say it flatly, the designer was not able to execute what it is that I was looking for. And now I don't say that with judgment and criticism. I thanked them for their every effort before we parted ways and I asked for a full refund. But something about what was coming out of that creative collaboration just wasn't right. And sometimes that happens, not just in creative collaborations in our professional lives, but in our personal lives, right? Sometimes we could be having a conversation with someone that knows us intimately and deeply, and we are just not meeting each other in clarity consciously. And that happens. We're humans. We have different ways of communicating, different perspectives and ways that we carry out our creativity, right? I shared with you in the very first episode of 2025 for Dirty Pretty that I really want to breathe more romance into everything that I do. And that involves considering life our most creative project. And so for me, considering that Dirty Pretty is a very personal and intimate container, I really wanted to have the graphics up to date before I issued the next podcast. And in the past, I have done things the opposite way, right? I have responded differently in my own creative essence. I shared with you that when the very first season of Dirty Pretty came out, I moved without having the graphics fully conceptualized. I just created something in Canva that I thought was a really good placeholder until I could conceptualize what it was that I thought I wanted Dirty Pretty to be about in, not only the conversation, but its visual imagery. It's really important to me in all of my projects, whether they're, like I said, professional or personal, that I feel a connection to them, that I feel like my essence is embedded in whatever it is that I've created. And that becomes challenging, right? Because creativity, in my experience, is a super personal, vulnerable endeavor. And so when we are communicating with each other, whether professionally or personally, I think it's important to remember that. I think it's important to remember that nobody wants to fail. I really just don't believe that. I believe that nobody wants to fail. Everybody wants to do a good job. Everybody wants to be understood. Nobody wants to be rejected. It's really, really hard. And so when I was parting ways with this graphic designer, who I've worked with, mind you, on other things that have been beautifully executed, I just was really honest with them. I said, thank you for your every effort. This isn't, verbatim. This is just a synopsis of what I can remember I emailed. Thank you for your every effort. I totally respect and appreciate your creative capacity. However, I just think that we have now elapsed our previously agreed upon timeline by 2 weeks. And that is just more than I'm willing to give to this project at this point. And I think it would be more prudent for me to move in a different direction and perhaps find a different designer with whom I can find a match in a creative perspective. That said, right, I think it's important to consider that everywhere that we go. And I think that sometimes we miss the mark. We miss the mark for a multitude of reasons, for things I think I've shared with you in the past, right? Sometimes when we're tired, we can lose sight of our emotional capacity. When we're sick, when we're anxious, when we're stressed, right? All of these things can impact how we align to our values and our authenticity. And, we really truly show up as the person we intend to be in the world. And I'm not saying that in my history, I haven't, let my frustrations get the best of me and moved in ways that, I would look back on and say, I really didn't love that. But all of this becomes a learning opportunity, right? And I really, really try and reinforce that within myself, because one of my triggered behavioral patterns is rejection. And so it's not just rejection from other people or feeling diminished and overlooked by other people, it's also by myself. Right? When I abandon my authenticity and I act out of integrity, there is a huge shame cycle that can propel and, perpetuate after that occurs. And so it is important for us to recognize how we can not only be impacted by our own inauthenticity. And I think that when, we practice who we want to be in all the places that we can, consciously remember this is who I want to be in, it becomes easier. And so my example for you is this. We have a Google Home. And I really hope that she doesn't start talking in the background because she's in my office too. Very similar to an Alexa, right? All those sorts of things. And every time I ask or make a request, right? Turn on the lights, turn off the lights, right? Tell me what the weather is, whatever. I speak to my home device in the same way that I would speak to you, right? Hey, so and so, please turn on the kitchen lights. And then I say thank you. And I speak to my girls, my dogs, my puppy babies, my kitties in the same manner, right? Please listen to me. Please come eat your dinner. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's such a good job. I have a trigger about good girl. So I try and say good job as often as possible. And Scott, my husband, likes to laugh at me all the time. He's like, you don't need to be so polite to the Google Home. You don't need to be so polite everywhere. And I'm just like, yeah, I do. Because the more that I reinforce being polite everywhere else, guess what? The more I reinforce being polite with myself. And so when I am able to be more polite with myself, then guess what? That becomes a part of my practice. That becomes a part of who I am as a human. And so then how I perform in the world, not performing, but you know what I mean, express myself in the world becomes a derivative of that, right? It becomes more commonplace for me to be kind and considerate when others are being vulnerable and we are not meeting each other where we want to be. We're missing each other. We're not connecting. We're not aligning. It allows me to also have compassion for myself when, somebody's frustrated with me and I'm being misunderstood or I'm misunderstanding and they're frustrated with me, right? It allows me to recognize that, oh yeah, we're different people. And am I being vulnerable? Am I being open and available to meet this individual as best as I can? Yes, but I'm not. Okay. Sometimes that happens, right? And when I allow that, then I don't go into that shame cycle and start to tear myself down and respond to my own rejection by continuing to reject myself and shaming myself for it. So I wanted to share this with you today because as I was working through the graphics with Dirty Pretty 2025 2.0, which I'm so excited that I get to release today and share with you, and I have several different graphics that are going to go along with the podcast now that I'm really excited about. And I want to give a shout out to my husband, Scott Wooten, who is an amazing artist at what he does. Just kind of bragging about my baby, my honey. He taught himself everything that he does. And he's, enrolled himself in places where he can learn different things, right? Of course, but he's a self-taught person. And so, me firing the former graphic designer so that I can find a relationship that was more congruent and that could deliver on my creative perspective that I was describing to them gave me the opportunity to visit something that I wouldn't have been able to visit perhaps, but I know I've never visited before, which was I got to work with my husband in a professional capacity. I got to be creative with him. I got to watch him be creative. Got to watch him be the maestro of his craft. And I got to tell you, it's so beautiful to watch. And I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity because I never got to see my husband that way. And it's a gift. And had I not stood up in my bigness, had I not been honest with that graphic designer about where I was coming from vulnerably and respect for who they were, what they were contributing vulnerably, I would have just probably, continued to go on trying to force fit a process and a connection and an understanding creatively that just wasn't going to work. And so it's important for me to share this with you because as I was thinking about what to do in this instance, right? Really, really always try and be thoughtful in my vulnerabilities with other people. As I said, minding that, my belief is that they're showing up vulnerably too. And if they're not, I'll learn that. But I always try and gift people that, I give them that. I believe they're showing up vulnerably because that's what I believe about people. And if they're not, like I said, I'll figure it out. But as I was contemplating the process of firing this individual, I got my feelings about it. I got upset that it was taking so long. And my project manager side of me was like, hello, the target deadline was like 2 weeks ago. Why weren't proofs to me before that? All that sort of shit, like checking all the boxes and holding people accountable. And understanding that there's a delicacy and a decorum with which I could deliver that. And I chose to go that route. But in the process of contemplating that relationship separation, I got upset, I got frustrated, and I also second guessed myself. I was like, am I quitting too soon? Am I not giving them, adequate opportunity? And this is really what I would say the biggest representation of romancing my life that I've come to in this season of my life is that My energy is valuable. Your energy is valuable. And if I feel like my energy is being wasted and I don't like to waste my fucking time, I don't want to waste your fucking time by denying that and lying to you and letting you know that I'm not feeling all the warm and fuzzies in this connection as I once was, right? And like I said, there's a delivery that can be done with that that allows people to understand that you're not trying to light them up and eviscerate them and dehumanize them and demoralize them. But for me, what I've understand and come to understand is that the more I practice this behavior with myself, the better I am at feeling at ease and practicing it with other people. So if you find yourself in a circumstance where, your energy is telling you that something isn't right or you need a change or you'd like something else, I implore you and I encourage you to really look behind those feelings, get the reason behind why you're feeling that way, and give yourself the opportunity to believe, maybe I'm right. Maybe my energy is telling me what is the best thing for me. And if I'm uncomfortable in it, is there a way that I can make myself comfortable in it? Is there a way that I can do my very best to be aligned with who I want to be loving, be vulnerable, be respectful, while still being honest, authentic, and transparent? And if you allow yourself to practice this and you notice that, it's hard and it's uncomfortable, consider the fact that you're asking yourself to expand into a bigness that maybe you're out of practice with, or maybe you've never practiced with or even conceptualized before. And so the discomfort can be that you're exploring something new with yourself. You're trying on a new energy for size, and you're really challenging yourself to be more visible, which requires you to be, you guessed it, more vulnerable. And as I always say, more you is always more better. And I know that's not proper English, it's on purpose. And if we allow ourselves to really accept that, to accept our fullness and our bigness, then those discomforting moments, those things that feel, treacherous and unfamiliar, can start to become little signals that, oh yes, this is uncomfortable because it's asking me to be bigger than I'm allowing myself to be at this moment. And if I allow myself to be as big as I am, how does it not only, challenge me, but also how does it not only embolden me? How does it not only allow me to see myself in a way that allows me to feel more authentic and more like myself? If you like any piece or part of this, please like it. Please leave a review. I would absolutely love that. It brings the podcast and, the show, wherever you're viewing it or listening to it, up into the feed so that more people like you and I can connect with each other and have these conversations about, the dirty pretty of life, seeing the hard thing and the right thing are sometimes the same. They're often the same. And that life is a spectrum. So that hard thing and that right thing are going to have some overlapping points. It's our job to do the due diligence to find out what that is. As always, be good to yourself, for fuck's sake. Live honestly in the dirty pretty of your life and choose to do the next right thing for you. Until next time.